Alright guys, BLM here back with a new video, and in this video I'm going to be doing another cast reaction for the challenge, where here I'll be talking about the cast of the Challenge USA Season 2, which has recently flown out. And this ends up being a very, very strange cast, where looking at USA Season 1, that was a cast that was entirely comprised of people from CBS reality shows, with that seeming to be the initial concept of the show, is to bring these CBS reality TV contestants to have their own version of the challenge. However, now we're getting a Season 2 that seems to completely go against that, which is kind of annoying, where while the majority of this cast still does have roots from CBS reality shows, there's still people from the original challenge that show up on this cast as well. With that, again, seeming to nullify the entire point of this specific spinoff. And especially when looking at the people that they cast from that group, it does feel pretty repetitive to see some of these people back, which is kind of an annoyance here with this cast. But in general, I do think this is still a pretty strong cast. I actually kind of like this group that we got here. I mean, there are certain surprises that are on here that I think are nice to see, while there's other, again, a bit more like questionable choices or people that weren't really on my radar, but even those aren't entirely bad. I mean, I think when looking at this cast, I actually have very few qualms with the overall casting, outside of the fact that we obviously cast MTV people, and also certain choices that were made with who is an alternate and who isn't, which with that, I mean, we might as well run through the alternates right now. Going through them in alphabetical order, we're going to start off with Kayla from The Amazing Race 33, who was obviously on USA 1. And Kayla being an alternate here, I'm not that big of a surprise in my mind. I mean, while she's someone I did like her first time around, liked her on The Amazing Race, and I did feel like she had a decent run there, someone that could truly compete in this field, I also am not that shocked that production isn't fully confident in her. I could definitely see her being one of these people that's like perpetually looked at as an alternate for casts moving forward. But she's someone that I perfectly would have been fine with on this cast if she did make it on. Next up, another alternate that was on USA 1. That person is Cinco, the only person from Love Island that's even in the pool here. And I mean, this makes sense. I mean, when I saw Cinco's name, when we thought he was on the cast, even then I said, like, really? And again, here, not that big of a surprise. I'm actually perfectly fine with it. If he makes it on the cast, whatever. Though the fact that he would make it on the cast over a couple of the other alternates would be a questionable decision, but still, makes sense why he's an alternate. Now we're getting into the shockers. This one's insane to me, considering this is actually the person that I was probably the most pleasantly surprised was on this cast. This is someone that had openly talked about not wanting to do it for USA 1, and someone that I was excited to see here, but it turns out they're an alternate, and that person is Hannah Chada from Big Brother 23. Now, realistically, do I see Hannah doing that well? Not really. Again, I don't know if she's really a type of person that I would expect to do well on the challenge, but I still wanted to see her on the challenge. And the fact that she's an alternate here is just insane to me. I mean, like, it is weird that they went with certain BB24 picks over Hannah, though obviously she's still someone I'm hoping to somehow squeeze her way into the actual cast. And speaking of the surprise, we get another surprise. How is Joseph from BB24 an alternate? Like, this is insane to me. Where, I mean, like, Joseph, truth be told, was kind of bland on the TV show of BB24. I do think he just came off as a really nice, affable guy that was a bit naive, and through that, again, like, I don't know if he would necessarily fit the challenge the best, outside the fact that he is obviously extremely physical, and I could very much see him doing very well in the challenges themselves. But in terms of the political nature of it, it's like, I don't really see him being as cutthroat as I would want him to be, though again, like, the fact that he's not on here is insane. Speaking of that, another choice that I am not as surprised this person's an alternate, though I still would have preferred this person to be on the cast. That person is Kyland, who, coming into USA 1, I was very excited for Kyland. I mean, Kyland is just a person that you would expect to do well on the challenge, and he did do pretty well in USA 1. However, again, like, in a BBUS field that has a couple other people kind of in his archetype, it does kind of make sense why he's not on. And also, to even add to that, I am actually like slightly happy in the fact that he isn't on, just from the fact that I do think he would have been a number for the vets. I think he would have probably sided with someone like a Johnny Bananas, who we know he's hung out with outside the show. So, like, in that sense, I'm kind of okay with it. But just in general, Kyland's someone that I definitely would have liked to see on the challenge again. The final alternate here is someone from The Amazing Race. Again, weird that The Amazing Race women that were in contention here were both alternates, but here we do have Lulu from Lulu and Lala from Amazing Race 33. And again, she's fine. I mean, she's not someone I'm like dying to see to where I'm like upset that she's an alternate here, but I kind of do feel for her because I believe she was also an alternate for USA 1, or at least with someone that was cut at the last second, to where, again, like, it kind of sucks to be an alternate again. But again, Lulu's not someone I'm dying to see. She'll be fine if she's on. Again, it would be nice to see more Amazing Race people, especially considering it's not looking great for the Amazing Race people, considering how few of them there are. But her status as an alternate here is not that shocking. But with that, those are all the alternates. We do have the actual cast to run through, which is not even the entirety of the cast. Supposedly there are still a few people that still need to be revealed. However, these are the people that we do know of as of Sunday night, the night before this video eventually comes out. But out of the people that we do have here, I actually don't mind this cast so far, outside of the inclusion of the MTV people. And at least a lot of the MTV people also do have connections to CBS. That kind of makes it a bit better, but it's still kind of ridiculous that for USA 2, which was supposed to be an entirely CBS-based spin-off, that they're doing something like this, though also that could play into the fact that supposedly this show is going to be on Paramount Plus instead of CBS, which would make all the sense in the world in reality, considering it didn't do the greatest in the ratings the first time around, to where I could definitely see them just making this another one of the spin-offs to be used on Paramount Plus alongside All Stars, which again, I do think would be a nice fit for the original content on Paramount Plus. But again, just the overall status of the show, though, is just really weird in how, what makes this that different from the original show? But either way, now let's run through the actual cast itself. And this time I actually do know every single person on this cast, so at least it's not like last time where I just rushed through all the Love Island people. Now, last time I was able to do it by show. However, it doesn't really work as well with the really random grouping we got here. So instead, we're going to go through them in alphabetical order of first name. And let's just get started. First up, we got two Alyssas on the cast. Two Alyssas that have a lot of similarities between each other. But first up, we're talking about Alyssa Lopez from BB23, who was obviously on USA 1. And again, solid pick here. I mean, if you're going to cast people from USA 1, it's definitely one of those people you would have expected to see here. I mean, I think she's willing to play the game. She's decent enough at the challenge. Like, I don't know if she's someone that I'm looking at as a true, like, winner candidate or anything, but I feel like she's a solid pick here. Definitely someone I was expecting to see back, and someone that I'm pretty okay with seeing back. But that goes from Alyssa from BB23 to Alyssa from BB24, where we have Alyssa Snyder. And again, it's just kind of humorous that they're both on the challenge now, in a situation where when Alyssa Snyder was announced for BB24, a lot of comparisons were brought up between the two, considering they literally come from the same city. But either way, Alyssa Snyder, I think it's fine. I mean, like, she's not someone that I'm dying to see on reality TV again, though. Out of the people from BB24, I feel like she's one of the people that makes the most sense. I feel like she kind of fits in the challenge in terms of the demographic that you would typically cast for a rookie, especially considering her recent breakup from Kyle. I mean, she's coming into the singles. So again, that's kind of what you would expect from the challenge. Now again, considering she wasn't the greatest in challenges on Big Brother, I'm not sure how exactly she'll do here, but still someone, again, like, I'm fine for casting here. Definitely not someone I'm like excited over, but she's fine. But now we're finally jumping into the MTV side of things, where we have a casting choice here that I am actually happy about, to where if we were going to get MTV challenge people, I feel like this person's perfectly fine to me, and that person is Amanda Garcia. And again, I'm happy about this. I like Amanda. I think she's one of my favorite characters from like the early 30s of the challenge. And again, she came back for Spies, Lies, and Allies. And considering how dreadful of a season that was, she was like really one of the only bright spots in it. And again, her being back here, I think it's fine. Do I think she's going to win? Probably not. But again, she should make good TV. She's here with Tori, who she has a big rivalry with. And again, the fact that the vet field here is not one that particularly favors Tori is something I'm pretty happy with as well. So again, I'm very happy with the casting of Amanda here. Next up, moving back to the Big Brother side of things, and here from BB24, we do have Ameerah. And Ameerah's not a big shock here, though it does still feel kind of weird to see Ameerah on the challenge. I mean, and she was a relatively early boot on BB24. Out of people from BB24, I don't think she's necessarily the worst pick in the world, though I think what makes her position on the cast a lot more questionable to me is the fact that she's on the cast instead of Hannah, who feels like a much bigger lock in my mind. Though again, the fact that they went with Ameerah over Hannah is such a mind-boggling decision to me, though really, at the end of the day, again, she's not the worst pick on paper. Next up, moving on to the Survivor side of things, where this is someone I'm pleasantly surprised to see on. Here we do have Cassidy from Survivor 43. Again, Cassidy I'm happy to see here. I think she perfectly fits the challenge. Should be an interesting player to see translate to the challenge. I mean, I feel like she's a pretty headstrong person, where I could definitely see her being an anti-vet person, and I think that could be interesting to see. And again, just as a whole, I'm pretty happy to see Cassidy here. Again, I was worried that considering CBS's seeming distaste for Survivor 43, and also the fact that Cassidy wasn't the biggest character in the world, that they wouldn't take her into consideration, but thankfully they did. I'm pretty happy to see her here. Next up, sticking to the Survivor side of things, and someone that I'm not surprised by in the sense that this person was talked about as in the running, but I am kind of surprised by it at the same time, and that person is Chanel from Survivor 42. And again, Chanel's another one that I do like. I'm happy to see someone like Chanel on another reality show, someone that is a big reality TV fan, super strategic. Now again, did I expect her on the challenge? Not really. I mean, I know, again, her name's been floating around as someone that was going to be on, and because of that, she was on my radar, but really before that, she's not really someone that I was like fully expecting to be on this, especially when you look at like the plethora of people, the cast from recent Survivor. The fact that Chanel is one of the only new era people to be on the cast is just kind of weird when you really think about it. I don't know, I felt like there were like so many other people from this new era that I expected to see on over Chanel, but again, I'm fine with Chanel. It'll be interesting to see how she plays the challenge and interesting how she holds up. So again, I'm perfectly fine with this casting choice. Next up, keeping with Survivor, and one of the pleasant surprises on this cast in my eyes, the first guy we're going to be talking about here somehow, and that is Chris Underwood from Survivor Edge of Extinction. And yeah, I'm very happy to see Chris Underwood here. I mean, again, someone that wasn't really on my radar. I really was not expecting Chris Underwood to be on the challenge. Not that, again, he doesn't fit. Again, he is, again, like a physical younger guy. Like, it makes sense why he's here, but he's definitely not someone that I was actually expecting to see here, where I feel like he's kind of gone off the radar. And again, seeing him here, I think it's pretty interesting to see how it goes. Next up, finally moving back to the MTV side of things, and here we do have Corey Warren, who I didn't expect to see here at all. And to be fair, Amanda was kind of the same thing, where like both of these people are people that have talked about taking breaks recently, to where they were just on season 37 of the challenge, which I mean, to be fair, was over a year ago at this point, but I was expecting those breaks to be a bit longer. But I think Corey's casting here is pretty fine. Again, out of the MTV people, I think he's probably next to Amanda the person I'm most okay with. Again, he's someone that isn't really that well ingrained within the vets that were brought back, to where I do think he'll try to work with the other side, and he also does have connections to certain other people in the cast. So again, I feel like Corey's another one of these like best case scenarios if we are going to be taking people from MTV. Next up, another of the MTV people, and we do have Darrell, who, fine, I guess. And like, I feel like we've just gotten so much of Darrell recently, to where I didn't really have any interest in seeing him again, especially considering his playstyle overall is just kind of boring. And he does obviously bring up the overall prestige of this cast in terms of the MTV side of things, where again, he is still undoubtedly one of the best competitors in challenge history, but still, it's like, could we not bring over someone that at least makes for better TV? That would have been great. But still, not an entirely bad pick, but just one I'm a bit exhausted from seeing on our screens over and over again, with him not really bringing that much to the table. Next up, moving on to another person from USA 1, and that person is Desi, obviously also from Survivor HHH. And again, happy to see Desi back. I think out of any of the people from USA 1, I feel like Desi was the one that was the most screwed over, where a return from her is the most warranted. I was kind of worried she wouldn't be on, as she is one of the later people to be added to the list. So again, happy that she's here. I think her second run here will be interesting to see. Again, I think she's someone that definitely has the potential to win it all. So happy to see her make the cut. Next up, moving on to the Amazing Race side of things, and that is Dusty from Ryan and Dusty from the Amazing Race 33. And Dusty is kind of random to me. I mean, I know he's another person that was mentioned as someone that would be into running, but he's not someone that, again, like I was putting like too high on my board. I would actually have put Ryan on here more than Dusty, but again, Dusty was fine. Again, I think Ryan and Dusty were both like pretty entertaining their first time around. They were also very dominant in the race, especially early on, to where again, like I can see Dusty doing very well here in terms of the challenges. I do worry for him socially, and the fact that he does feel like a bit of an outlier here. I mean, just in general, Amazing Race obviously doesn't have too many people here like last time. They only have 4 people, the least out of any show outside of Love Island, I guess. Though, to be fair, 3 of those people do come from Amazing Race 33, so he does at least have some naturally ingrained allies, but still like a bit unsure on how exactly it will go. But another one I'm fine with being on the cast, but not someone I'm like dying to see either. Next up, moving on to someone that's been on both CBS and MTV, we do have Fessy. I'm kind of lukewarm on Fessy nowadays. I feel like I was pretty high on Fessy at the time of like Double Agents and coming into Spies, Lies, and Allies. However, I think his run on Ride or Dies was just kind of fine. Like, I think he's gotten to the point where he's not the most riveting TV anymore. Like, I think he was like playing up the villain early on, and he was an interesting heel. However, that's kind of faded away, and he's become a bit more mellow to where, again, I am probably expecting to see more of that on this season, though I do think it'll be interesting to see how he is able to get ingrained in this cast. I mean, he is on a cast here with obviously this mix of MTV people and CBS people, but also in a cast filled with Big Brother people and some Big Brother people that he's played with. I think there are interesting dynamics to explore here with these people that were on both shows that I think will be interesting to see. But overall, Fessy, again, just kind of fine with him being here. Next up, moving on back to MTV, probably the most prominent name in the challenge. We do have Johnny Bananas, which, I mean, obviously he was going to be here. I mean, once we got the announcement that MTV people were going to be here, I mean, there are two obvious names, and Bananas was obviously one of those. I mean, and again, do I need to see Bananas back? No, I definitely don't, especially for Challenge USA 2. But I think it'll be hilarious to see Johnny Bananas get schooled by the CBS people here. Because again, I don't think this looks great for these like older school challenge people. Now again, I could completely be wrong, and watch me be wrong, and Bananas wins USA 2, but I don't think this looks like a good spot for him. I do feel like there's a lot of people here that don't really feel like they'll work with Bananas. I mean, as we saw in World Championship, where he's getting on the nerves of Danny and Sarah. Like, that's kind of the way I see this going. I feel like he's going to try to play up this role that he knows better than everyone else because he's played the challenge so much, to where I feel like that's just going to annoy people. And again, with these more strategic shows like Survivor and Big Brother, I feel like that's just going to make them more incentivized to just turn on Bananas. And I feel like it'll be interesting to watch. Again, I'm okay with Bananas casting solely under the impression that he's going to be a relatively early boot. And through that, I think it will be fun to watch. But outside of that, I really just did not need him on this show. But moving from Bananas, one of the more obvious picks, to someone that I'm a bit surprised to see on here from MTV. Though, again, if we're getting MTV people, I think it's a pleasant surprise, and that person is Janae. Now, we have seen a lot of Janae recently. We've obviously seen 3 seasons of All Stars with her, and then we saw her in World Championship. But again, I do really like Janae, though at the same time, I was surprised to see her here. I mean, she did recently say that she was going to take a break, to which she didn't end up going on All Stars 4. However, the fact that she's here on USA 2 just feels very strange to me. Like, it literally has been like, what, maybe like 6-7 months? I mean, it hasn't even been a year since World Championship. It's not been that big of a break, but either way, again, I think Janae's fine. I think she kind of perfectly fits this cast, where Janae to me has always felt like a very Big Brother-y style player and how she approaches the challenge, especially since All Stars. So again, I think it'll be interesting to see how she ingrains herself within people that have played Survivor and Big Brother. So again, pretty happy with her in the case that we're getting MTV people. Next up, moving on to another person that's been on both MTV and CBS. That person is Josh Martinez. And I mean, Josh, not a big surprise that he's here. And the fact that he was passed up for Challenge 38 is still really shocking to me, considering how much MTV seems to love him. And again, like, I don't personally mind Josh. I know a lot of people find him grating at this point. I still think he's better TV than most other people on the challenge. And I think, especially with the CBS aspect of it all, I think it makes him an even more interesting casting choice here, where again, there's a lot of Big Brother people. There's a lot of people that he has previous relationships with. I just think it'll be interesting to see how he navigates through this game. So another person that I'm perfectly fine with him being here. Next up, moving on to The Amazing Race, someone that I was pleasantly surprised to see here. I was not expecting this person on the cast at all. I think it's a pretty decent pick, and that person is Lewis. From Lewis and Michelle from Amazing Race 34. The only person from Amazing Race 34 somehow. But yeah, I thought Lewis was pretty fun on that season. Had a fun energy that he brought to the show. And again, I'm happy to see him on the challenge. Now, I don't know if he necessarily fits into this cast that well, where again, he's obviously one of the few Amazing Race people on this cast, which is really an endangered species here, to where he just seemed like easy targets right off the bat. And also, even beyond that, his energy kind of feels a bit more like fun and energetic, more so than a lot of the other people on this cast. But again, I'm happy to see Lewis here. I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. Next up, we got another big surprise for me, where this is someone that was completely off my radar, someone that would go on to the Challenge USA 2 in particular, considering this person was in the running for Challenge 38 and dropped out. However, they're on USA 2, and that person is Michaela Bradshaw from Survivor and also Challenge Spies, Lies, and Allies. And obviously, she was the first boot there. However, I do feel like Michaela still has a lot of potential. Again, I think she got very unlucky that first time around, with obviously all the vets coming for her right away as one of the stronger women, and her also having kind of a lackluster partner. But here again, I think she has a lot of potential. I'm really excited to see how she does. And somehow out of the CBS people, she's one of the most old school people on this cast, which is just kind of humorous that that's the case. But again, it's just nice to see some people not from the last few seasons on. So again, I'm happy that she's here. But following that up with another Survivor person in that ballpark, another person that at least hasn't been on Survivor in the new era while also having transitioned to MTV. However, here we're talking about Michelle Fitzgerald. And again, perfectly fine with Michelle here. I think Michelle is someone that kind of fits in line in this cast. And I think it'll be interesting to see how she interacts with a lot of these other CBS people. Plus, also, again, she has this interesting dynamic of her knowing this MTV people as well. I mean, Michelle seems like a perfect casting choice for something like this. Being a former winner of Survivor and a finalist on Winners at War, like someone that adds prestige to this cast, and because that, again, I think she's a solid pick. Next, I'm moving back to the Big Brother side of things, and from BB24, we probably have the person that was the biggest lock on the board in my mind out of the rookies, and that person is Monty. And again, I didn't need to see Monty back. I mean, he's probably one of the people that I'm the least excited to see on this cast. I really just did not need to see Monty again. But again, it seemed like CBS liked him for some reason, and I, again, fully expected him to be here. And again, he could probably do pretty well. Physical guy, won a lot of comps at the end of Big Brother. So again, I can definitely see it going well for him here. Next up, another one of the biggest shocks to me that's on this cast. Someone I'm pretty excited to see back, considering I've been wanting this person back on the challenge proper for a while. But here from Big Brother 18 and also the challenge, we have Paulie Calafiore. And I'm happy to see Paulie back here. Again, it felt like for a while that him and Cara Maria were both blacklisted from the show. Obviously, Cara Maria is going to be on All Stars 4. Now Paulie's here on Challenge USA 2. And I'm happy to see Paulie here. Again, he's someone that, while I don't agree with a lot of the things he does make for riveting TV. I mean, to me, the story of Paulie across his challenge career is such an interesting one to me. Like this downfall for him on War of the Worlds 1 and 2 in particular being just great storylines for him. And again, he's willing to pick fights. He's also not well ingrained within the vets. So I think that'll be interesting to see him face off against someone like a Tori and a Bananas here. There's a lot of conflict to be had here. I think it'll just be really interesting to see how he does here. So I'm personally excited to see him on this cast. Next up, keeping up with Big Brother, here we do have another person from USA, and that person is Tiffany, once again, from BB23. And I'm happy to see her. I mean, again, I thought she was a bit of a surprise the first time around, where on USA 1, she did pretty well in the challenges, something that I didn't really expect from her. So again, I'm pretty excited to see how she does this time. I'm a little worried for her in the sense that two of her closest allies in Hannah and Kylan are both alternates now, and then also adding in Alyssa Lopez probably coming for her. I do feel like it's definitely a bit of a worry here for Tiffany, but I really hope she does do well. I feel like she is coming into this season with less of a target on her back than she did the first time around. Though again, there's still some red flags there, but again, I'm hoping she does end up having a solid run here. Next up, probably the person I'm the most upset to see on this cast, but I mean, it was inevitable. From the MTV side of things, we have Tori Deal. And it's like, why? Again, like the fact that Tori was going to be on, and with how obvious it was that she was going to be on, is kind of what made me a bit sour coming into this cast, which is probably why I'm as high on the cast as I am now, as it seems to have turned out pretty well, despite the fact that Tori is there. But again, just Tori's just so bland to me. Like, we've seen her so many times now, and I mean, she's by far the most boring of the MTV people here. Not even just naturally as a character, but even beyond that in her gameplay style. The way she plays the game is one that essentially has her sticking with her friends and running the show from that, which is just boring TV. Like, I really just don't get why production seems to love Tori so much, as again, to me, I just never really click with her. Even like watching Dirty 30, a season that she's supposed to be well loved during, like, I just never got it. But again, she's here, so yay. But following that up, we do get another one of the bigger surprises on the board. The last Big Brother person to talk about here, and that person is Tyler Crispin from BB 2022. Again, genuinely shocked to see him here. Definitely someone that was completely off my radar of someone that would say yes, considering Tyler's someone that I'm pretty sure has been asked numerous times for a challenge and has continuously said no. And considering Angela's experience the previous season, who, I mean, like, they are broken up now, but still, it's like, considering how negative of experience she had, I'm surprised Tyler would have said yes. But again, I'm happy to see it. I personally have always been a big fan of Tyler. I think he's played one of the best non-winning games in the history of Big Brother on BB20, and while 22 did not go as well, I think there were obviously extenuating circumstances for that. So again, I'm excited to see how he does on the challenge. I think he's pretty well ingrained here too, particularly people that have connections to the MTV side of things. And he's also a really affable guy to where, again, like, I am expecting Tyler to do pretty well here, but I guess we'll see. And the final person on the cast here is back to the MTV side of things. Another one that's not a big surprise. We do got Wes. And again, Wes is fine. I mean, again, if we were going to cast people for MTV, Wes is probably one of the more tolerable people here. Someone that, while he is a vet and one that is still friends with someone like a Bananas, to where I'm assuming they're going to work together. I think Wes is at least like a very strategic player. I mean, he's someone that is commonly noted as someone that could do well on Survivor, Big Brother. But even beyond that, I think he's someone that could play an interesting role on this cast, and where he's like the type of person that always tries to pick up rookies and be this like mentor figure to them. And I think that could be a pretty good spot for him on this season, where I fully expect Wes to have already made a lot of calls preseason and trying to get in the ear of a lot of these rookies. And I think that'll just be an interesting dynamic to see. For me, while we have seen a lot of Wes on the challenge, I do still feel like he's a better casting choice than Tori and even Bananas. So again, I'm kind of fine with him here if we're going to have MTV people. But with that, I mean, that's the entire cast of the Challenge USA 2. Again, a cast that I'm largely fine with. I'm shockingly so. I really came into this thinking it was going to be near worst case scenario, especially considering we were hearing that a lot of big names were dropped in the days coming into the cast release. But again, like seeing this cast here, I think it's solid. I think it's certainly not the worst case scenario that I was expecting. Now, again, I think there's certain people that I'm surprised not to see here, certain people that I would have expected to see. But again, all things considered, I'm perfectly fine with this cast. With, again, there not seeming to be this like very clear MTV contingent coming into it, and also there being a decent chunk of solid competitors on this season, and a lot of names I'm just happy to see back here. So again, overall, like I'm pretty high on this cast, probably higher than I was on the USA 1 cast, for what it's worth. So obviously I will be covering the Challenge USA 2 when eventually this season airs, where I'll be doing a review of it. Obviously the Challenge World Championship is currently airing, to where I'll also be doing a review of that. All Stars 4 is probably coming not too long after that, to where I'll probably do a review of that as well. So I got a lot of Challenge coming up. I also wanted to do a Challenge spin-off ranking at some point, though at this point I think I'm going to hold off until after USA 2, considering we literally have 3 spin-offs that we know are coming this year, so might as well wait until they're all aired. But again, I'll get around doing that video at some point, so stay tuned for those. But for now, that's the video. Thank you for watching.